In today's episode, I'm calling up a friend from the Down Under. Raul was my Ozzie roommate back in Arizona. Due to COVID, he decided to hop on a flight back to Australia, and the rest was history. Today, Raul is going to introduce me to some aviation knowledge while we spitball down some memory lanes. So, what are you gonna teach me about aviation?
So, firstly, I'll talk about how I got into the world of aviation, like what I kind of learned, and then we can chat through planes and then the flying side of aviation, and maybe I'll share a tip or two about finding better prices or how to make the flight journey more peaceful or bearable.
Okay.
So, aviation is quite an interesting thing. So when I was growing up, parents didn't have much money, so we always used to stare at planes flying, and we used to think, oh, one day we'll be able to afford going on a plane. And that's where it kind of all started off. And then in terms of aviation, there's the commercial side and the military side, which I'm not going to talk much about the military side for confidential reasons. So I'll talk about the commercial side of flying, which is basically dominated by your Airbus and Boeing.
I know Boeing's located in Seattle.
Yes, interestingly, when I was at Deloitte and we were doing a stock count, so basically counting planes and their parts in Everett, where their factory is. So yeah, basically the two big ones are Boeing and your Airbus. So Boeing's American, Airbus is French, based in Toulouse, France. And it's more of a European Union company rather than French itself. So yeah, those are the big ones. And if you noticed, all the Boeing aircraft start with a 7.
Okay.
So 717, 727, 737, which is all your Delta American use for the domestic flights.
So why is that? Do you know why they picked 7?
Good question. I don't really know the details behind it.
Okay.
I think to make it easier from my identification point of view.
Yeah,
and
maybe 7 is their lucky number or something.
That's right. And yeah, and with Airbus, all their numbers start with a 3. So 320, 340, 380, 321. So those are the major aircraft. So it's quite an interesting world of aviation, how the planes fly. If you think about it, a human on their own can't fly. But then you jump on a plane and then, you're basically in the air.
Yeah. It's one of the most life-changing inventions in the 19th century, 18th century. I don't even know when it was invented.
It was all the way back, I think all the way back in 1700s. The Wright brothers kind of got adventurous and thought flying was a big thing, and they kind of invented the first flight, which I don't think even had a motor.
Really? Was it just how was it operated? How did they make it fly then?
So you know how a flight works? It's basically gliding through the air. So it's similar to that, and then they realized they need a way to take off and land, and that's where your motors coming in terms of having that energy to push off and come down. So yeah, it's quite interesting how planes work. So the wings kind of control the angles in gliding. The engines or the turbines, they are the ones that have the energy to push the plane forward. So basically how it works is a plane goes forward by pushing the air backwards. So with the turbines, they've got the blades which rotate. So they're basically sucking the air. And then they release it at the other end, which makes the plane go forward. And the wings are mainly used for the takeoff and landing, because that they kind of generate the angles needed to go up in the air or come down to the land. Without them,
that's why when you watch it, when it's taking off and stuff, the wing, the little end thing, flips up and down. Interesting.
Yes. So when it's flying, it's downwards, or if you think about wing that way, it's kind of slightly downwards, so it's pushing up.
Okay, yeah, okay.
And then when you land to decrease, they open the flaps to provide resistance to slow down.
Hmm.
Because many airports in the world, the landing speed, they aim at 200 kilometers per hour, roughly 200, which is about, I think, 120 or 130 miles an hour kind of speed.
Mm-hmm.
Which is quite interesting, given some planes that fly as quick or top speed of 500, 600 miles an hour. Yeah, so quite an interesting world. And what the pilots basically do is, once the plane kind of takes off, they put it to autopilot, and they take long breaks. Some of them literally just take naps and take it easy, and sometimes you see the pilot walking around and you're wondering,
oh yeah,
is he really flying the plane, or is he, what's going on?
Yeah, it makes it look so easy.
And the greatest thing about flying is the safety record. So back in the day, pilots were trained on actual planes, which meant that you couldn't actually simulate all the conditions they'll be facing when they're actually flying. Nowadays, every airline has a simulator, which is basically, it's like a box and then kind of simulates every single condition that a pilot could think about.
I've seen those,
and so the worst possible conditions a pilot could face is a rainy day where there's 80, 90 mile an hour crosswinds. So basically what crosswinds are is they push the flight or the plane sideways or backwards and forwards, which makes it so much harder to get the weight right for landing or the angles right for landing. So yeah, that's the most interesting part about flying. And to put into perspective, you've got a lower chance of crashing or being part of a flight statistic if it crashes, or plane crashing, than you sitting in your living room or lounge room and getting hit by a car. So it's like it's that low.
Interesting. So one of the things that I learned about pilots was one of the other meaning of pilot, which means something that was done as an experiment before they spread it more wildly. So it's pretty much like an experimentation that was done before they actually make it official. So that's kind of interesting that they chose that word to also mean this person who's in charge of a life. So that's the only other thing that I that I know that is a fun fact about pilot.
Okay. Yeah, pilots is a whole different world. So how a pilot kind of starts their journey is they need you like a bachelor's degree, and then they go to flight school, which is basically they start off on the smallest possible planes and then slowly move up. And then with the flight academy, that's when most of their training is done with the simulator, not an actual plane. So think about like in accounting, you know how you start off as an associate and then kind of progress through to higher round?
Yeah.
So with the pilot is also a similar thing, like kind of start off with your A320s or your Boeing 737s or even your Embraer aircraft, which are like your turbine ones. Not the turbine, the propeller powered ones. So yeah, it's like a gradual system.
Do they start with like the simulation and then move on to like smaller aircrafts and then graduate to the bigger ones? Is that how it works?
That's right. So it's slightly more complicated, mainly because they started with a smaller aircraft, and most simulators can simulate even the smallest of the aircrafts these days. So they train them for every possible condition in a way that if condition X comes up, they know exactly what to do. And then every time they graduate to a bigger aircraft, again, they go back to flight school, simulators, training, and then go back up again. And the guys that fly the A380s or the Boeing Dreamliners or the 747s, those guys are the big guys because they've been flying for 10,000 plus hours in the sky, which is incredible if you think about it.
Yeah. I know Top Gun, the second Top Gun movie just came out in the United States recently. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't. I'm super keen to go. I'm actually going next Saturday.
Really? Okay. Yeah, I would be interested to hear what you think about the movie.
Interesting. So I kind of compare. So a lot of what they do in Top Gun kind of thing, it's more trickery, and also that's way advanced to what a normal pilot would do in a commercial aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the guys in the Top Gun, they're more like the fighter pilots, or they fly the fighter planes or the warplanes.
Uh-huh.
So the interesting part is, I'm not sure if you know the concept of G-force.
Mm-hmm.
So basically G-force is the gravity pushing down on you.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those aircraft have like 10 or even 15 G-force, which is incredible. Like, it's enough to like crush your bones if you're not trained properly.
Interesting. So
So
when you
those
do
guys train in like high altitude environments and with the G-force, and it makes you really sick. Like if you're not trained properly.
Is it to prevent when the plane is taking off, or when it gets to a high enough altitude, the pressure is crushing down on your body is that high? Or is it when you're taking off, the pressure that's pushing you back is doing that?
It's a combination of all of them.
Okay.
But the main one is the Lockheed Martin, one of the aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
It flies 3 times as high as your commercial aircraft. So it flies at almost 30 kilometers altitude, which is close to space, like edges of space.
Interesting.
So that's where you're entering the gravitational force of the Earth.
Uh-huh.
So that's where you're like in between. So the G-forces are insanely high. It's incredible how they do it.
Yeah, because you're trying to break out of the G-force. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's also like why you see like those like pilots do go through like those vomit trainings, or like the dizziness challenge thing, whatever
That's
they
right.
call it, because at that point the oxygen level is so thin as well, and then you have to like be constantly pushing your body against those G-forces. I don't think I can do that. Like, I don't think physically I'm able to do that. Like, one of my dream goals is to go skydiving one day, and I'm a little bit scared of height. So like I want to like do it so I can conquer my fear, but I feel like I need to like be prepared, and I need to like not eat for the like 2 days before, otherwise I feel like I might throw up. So I know you've done skydiving, right?
Yeah, I've done skydiving and bungee
Yeah,
jumping.
okay. How was that?
It's good. I'd say skydiving is a lot easier, mainly because you've got that person with you.
Yeah.
And like the first couple of seconds, your brain takes so much time to process all that, because it goes into that survival mode where you're thinking you're going to crash to your death. And the guy on your back kind of reassures you. And then once the parachute opens, that's when things become super smooth. So it's like a smooth sailing.
Uh-huh.
And now with bungee jumping, it's slightly different because you don't have the parachute. So basically jumping into like a ditch. Like the one I did in New Zealand, it was like a 130-meter drop.
Mm.
And it's incredible. Like the whole time you're thinking you're just going to crash to your death. And the complicated part is you go head first.
Yeah, because they tie you from the feet.
That's right. And all your blood kind of heads to your head.
Uh-huh.
And the complicated part is once it goes down, and then you bounce up and down a couple of times,
right? Yeah.
Before they reel you back in.
Oh, I was gonna ask, how do they like get you out of it? Do they just cut the wire, or do they reel you back in?
There's a couple of different types of bungee jumps. So the ones above the river, they pull you into a boat underneath.
Okay.
The one I did, which was basically a flat piece of land, they have to pull you up. So what they do is they say, you're going to bounce up a couple of times. So they say once you bounce 1, up, 2, up, and then once you're up 3, they ask you to release your legs. So the lock or the tie that catches your legs together, there's a pin that you're going to release. And then once you release that, you go into like a seated position.
Huh.
and then that's when they pull you up.
Seated position. How do you sit up?
So they tie two things. So they tie one to your waist,
Uh-huh.
and then to your legs.
Uh-huh.
So basically,
Okay.
once you bounce up 3 times, your legs are untied.
Okay. Oh, okay, okay,
So you
I
go from
see.
that to kind of that.
Okay, yeah, I see. So you're hanging from your waist. Okay.
That's right.
Ah, interesting.
And they tie the things under your thighs,
Uh-huh.
not exactly your waist, like from your waist to your thighs. So it's like
Yeah, okay, so it's like the same what do you call that when you go like rock climbing and bouldering?
That's right. Exactly the
those
same one.
things.
And the scary part is if you don't remove the tie, they're still gonna pull you up upside down. And that's when your blood, like
Yeah.
I've had some friends who didn't
Just
do
pass
that,
out.
and they had bursted blood
Oh.
vessels in their eyes and their
Oh.
nose. It's a scary situation.
See, that's why like I want to go skydiving but not bungee jumping.
I don't know, like it's once you kind of do it a couple of times, you get
Mhm.
used to it. And I've never been scared of heights or roller coasters.
Mhm. I can't
So
even
you
do
kind
roller
of-
coasters nowadays. I went to this theme park with my friends last year. It was this place called Valley Scares or Valley Fair, whatever, in Minnesota. And I didn't realize it was like a ride only theme park. And it was like a lot of money to get in as well. And then my friends were like, "Oh, let's go do this. And I was like, "Oh shit, like do you want to watch me throw up?" So I just waited, and then at the end I was like, I will at least do like one. So I asked around like the guy working there. I was like, what do you recommend is like the least like crazy roller rides? He's like, yeah, the North Star is pretty easy. So I went to the North Star, and then there's like 50% of the people in line are kids. And I got on the ride with them, and then try all of the technique like staring into something, closing my eyes, but I realized you should never close your eyes. So just stare at one spot. So I did the whole thing, and the kid sitting right behind me was talking to his dad. He was like, "Oh my god, this is so boring. I don't feel anything. Can we go do something other than this next time?" And I was like, "Oh my god!" I was holding on for my dear life. I was like, "Oh, please don't throw up. Please don't throw up." So yeah, I am not a big roller coaster guy anymore. I've never really been a roller coaster guy. I did the Splash Mountain. I did the Space Mountains. I did all of those when I was younger, but I was still scared. I just can't do it physically now. I just want to throw up. My brain just isn't wired that way. It gets so dizzy so easily. I don't know why. Maybe one too many concussions. Who knows? But yeah, I envy you sometimes when you don't want to throw up once you get onto a ride.
That's a good point. But it's fun, and yeah, I'm with that kid. Like I get bored on roller coasters, and I'm like,
yeah.
Is there anything scarier?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm the kind of person like Halloween and stuff. I want to go to a haunted house, but I feel like I might punch someone and get kicked out and have to like pay them medical bills. Cause I hate jump scares. Like I like suspenseful like scary movies. I like suspense. But like if you try to jump scare me, like I'm sorry, like I'm not trying to punch you. I'm not trying to hurt you. But my body is not under my control at that point.
Funny story. So
Uh-huh.
I get jump scared as well. Like haunted has scared me so much.
Mm-hmm.
So once I was flying from Melbourne to Los Angeles,
Mm-hmm.
and I was sleeping on the plane, and then I suddenly woke up, and then the flight attendant was staring face to face at me, and I literally threw my water, and I was like, "What?" Like I was so scared. I was like, "What is going on?" Because you don't expect like a flight attendant straight at your face when you wake up.
Right?
And the person behind me literally coughed a glass full of water in their face. Because I had my tray table open, I forgot to close it. And I had to have water on the top.
So what was the flight attendants doing? Like, are they trying to check on you, try to see if you're okay or whatever?
I think they were serving food, and because I had my tray table open, they were thinking maybe I was ready for food. So they just waking me up to give me the food. But then I'm a deep sleeper, so that didn't really help.
Yeah, because I remember you telling me that there's two things that you do when you sleep. One of them is you crank your fan all the way up and you sleep under your sheets. So I don't know how that works, but like, okay, I guess that makes sense if you're trying to be cold and you're under all the sheets.
I learned it from Dad. So what he does as well is we turn the fan on for the airflow, and then we basically cocoon like a caterpillar, like a baby. So the air doesn't get in, and then we take the face off. So the face is exposed outside, so it doesn't heat up. But it's actually fun. You gotta try it.
I run cold. Like when I sleep, I run cold. Like I nearly caught a cold the other night because the air conditioning, the AC was on, and then I was sleeping under like 2 layers, and I like put my arms out, and then the next morning I got a runny nose, so I was like, oh crap, like I need to like put on a blanket or something. So who knows? Maybe I'll try it. Maybe I will try to like suffocate myself under the blankets and turn the fan on, but who knows?
I'm a strange child. I have to have a fan on even in the coldest winter days.
And like, you chose to go to Arizona.
I know, right? I don't know if I told you this. So my first week in Phoenix, I was coming in from Melbourne winter, which was like 50 degrees, 45 degree winter.
Oh, really?
To straight 120 degrees summer.
Yeah.
So every time I went out, my whole back was covered in sweat. Yeah, but university house was really good. I enjoyed your company and I missed those days.
Yeah, it was when COVID first started, and it was just you and me kind of. I was glad to have someone to keep me sane, so I'm not just in my room every single day, on my laptop, taking naps like every 2 hours or something. So it was really nice to have someone during COVID, I guess, when everything's locked down. So you actually at least have some company. But yeah, absolutely miss those days, appreciate everything, and yeah, I really enjoyed when we rent, just out of nowhere, one day Raul was like, I think I'm gonna rent a car. You wanna go somewhere next weekend? And I was like, okay, like it's COVID, but like I don't have anything going on, so like why not? So we did that, and we just like decided to go drive all the way to Sedona. I was very ambitious. At first I was like, let's drive all the way to the Grand Canyon. I've never been. And I look on the map, it's 5 hours there and 5 hours back. And I was like, okay, we'll go early. And then we went to the car rental place, and it was like, the line was really long, and we got the rental car around like noon. We got the car around noon, and we were like, okay, we have this car for 2 days. We could go tomorrow, but let's go today. So at around noon, we went back home to get like water and food, and then when we left, it was like 1 or 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and we drove all the way to Sedona, which is like 2 hours and a half, and then we did a hike over there, and I was exhausted because the hike was really amazing. It was really amazing. We got some good pictures, but it was like an hour and a half of a hike. And then I had to drive all the way back because Mr. Australian over here is not used to driving on the other side of the road. So I had to drive all the way back. So I was really, really exhausted. And I think I told you that like literally we're like 10 minutes away from the house, and I just all of a sudden I felt it hit me. I was like, holy shit, I cannot open my eyes. Like, I am so tired right now. And I was like, okay, let's do this. Like, let's try not to crash. Or like, I can see it. Like, it's like over there, like 10 more minutes. So it was fun though. I enjoy spontaneous trips, especially when you don't have anything going on. So that was a great time.
And remember our trips to Whole Foods?
Oh yeah.
Just random trips to Whole Foods, and then always like plan about spending less than $50, but it never happens. Like things just add up and you buy a couple of things.
Yeah, I always spend less than $50. But this guy always goes to the chocolate section and then grabs like 10 different chocolates. So yeah, it's hard to keep it under $50 if you buy like 10 different brands of chocolate each time. So
and the best part, I still remember that day when the unicorn, the toys were on sale, and I was like keen to get one, but then I realized I've got no place to keep them.
Yeah, I remember the big shortage of toilet paper of 2020, and we had to like go find toilet paper. And then one day I remember like someone was telling you or me that like there's like toilet paper at this store like 5 minutes away, and one of us were like telling the other one, like calling them, was like, oh, I heard they like restocked toilet paper at this place. And then we had to like run all the way over to grab like one whole like 20 row or something like that. Yeah, I remember that. And during the time actually like to save toilet paper, I remember I did this. So we have like public amenity, like the gym and like the bathroom on like the 4th floor, the 3rd floor. So every single day I would go down there and use the bathroom over there so I can save the toilet paper at home. So I did that for like 2 weeks.
I think I did that as well. Like I used to go to the gym and then go to the bathroom after to take a dump there. And those were challenging days.
Yeah, I remember the gym wasn't even open. So like I just go down there for the bathroom. And lucky enough, like the apartment like keep refilling it. So that's good. So that worked out. But it was rough.
The only thing I regret we didn't do is, you know that day when I was like randomly, can you shave my head?
Yeah, because you shaved my head for me. You cut my head in the back, remember, with my little razor thing? Because I tried to shave it myself, and then I messed up one side, and I was like, oh crap, like I need someone else to do it for me. So I asked you to do it for me. And then, and you're like, you're thinking about shaving your head too, but you never really decided to do it.
I grew my hair actually. My hair doesn't grow long. It gets scrubby and scruffy. And I grew it until January, like for a good 8 months. And it was looking good. Promising days.
Yeah, the longest I've gone was like 2.5 months. And I had to get a haircut. My dad in China, like they had to get a haircut, and my mom did it for him, which is nice. But I guess like I had you to cut my hair, so I mean, I guess I win, but you know.
I'll give that to you.
Yeah, COVID was rough, but I'm glad that I had someone there with me, I guess. Yeah, I remember you had like an airplane app too on your phone.
I used to track planes where they are, and so to the audience, one fun thing I used to do in Arizona was we could see the airport from our apartment, like could actually see the runway and the planes landing.
Yeah.
So every morning I used to grab my breakfast and watch the planes, and I'm really keen on working out where the plane's coming from, where the plane's going to, and what kind of plane it is. So I used to get the app open, and you could track on the app, it's a visual image of planes, and then you can tap on a plane and see what kind of plane it is. Mm-hmm. So the app is called Flight Radar, and it's a super cool app because anytime you see a plane in the sky, you can actually see what kind of plane it is and where it's coming from. And it used to be super cool, and those apartment views were amazing. Like
we signed up like really, really late, so we got put into the last unit, one of the last unit, in like a 20 20-floor building. Was it 20 or more? But yeah, we got put on the air quote penthouse.
Yeah.
So we had a hot tub in our unit, which was costing like $100 per person just to run it every single month. So we had to turn it off most of the months. But we also had to pay like a lot extra because it was like the penthouse. But the view was really, really nice. The view was really, really nice. And you can see a lot of things. Like we can see the Sun Devil like football stadium from our apartment. And I remember when Kanye was there for like his church service thing at the stadium, we can literally like see it from our like window from our apartment. But the floor to ceiling windows as well, oh, those are very, very nice.
Yes, those are amazing. And it got pretty heated in summer, so we had to like turn on the air conditioning most of the time.
Yeah, because the windows, like, it's floor to ceiling windows, so the room gets heated during the summer. But sometimes there's a couple times that I see like eagles and birds like landed like right outside our window, and I would take like videos about like off it because we're so high up that like it's birds just like go and just rest there, I guess.
I still remember getting like a video of a peregrine falcon, which I think is the fastest animal on the planet. And it was so cool. Like it took off, and I read somewhere they can fly upwards of like 160 miles an hour. They're incredible, those birds.
Really? Interesting. I know an ostrich can run that fast too.
Yeah, ostrich, yeah.
Those things are fast. You sent me a video the other day of a guy beating an alligator, or isn't it a crocodile? It's a crack, right?
It's a crocodile, yeah.
Crocodile, yeah, there we go. Yeah, so Australia, it's very wild. People with their animals.
Definitely. And the best part about Australia is cheaper to fly internationally than within the country, which is...
Really?
So, yeah, like Melbourne and Perth, which are two different cities in Australia.
Uh-huh.
So Melbourne to Perth is about a 4.5-hour flight.
Huh.
And it costs about $700-800. But then if you want to fly to Melbourne to Singapore, you can fly at the same price, which is a good 8 hours away, 8-9 hours away.
Okay, so one of the theories that I heard that might attribute to that is because most of the time taking off and landing takes more fuel than actually being in the air. So sometimes the shorter distance you have to like pay more because you're not in the air as long.
That's right. That and also airports. So basically how airports work is the airline doesn't own the airport or anything. They basically pay, airport is like a completely different company who charge airlines to fly in. There's three kinds of fees in a way. One is the air, using the runway, landing and taking off. And then there's the fee to like use the terminal and the gate where the planes park and passengers come on and come off.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the flight services, which is basically collecting the baggage, checking in customers, that sort of things. So these are the three major costs for an airline, and the smaller airports charge more because their running costs are still high, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas your bigger airports, because they've got so much volume, it's a lot easier to subsidize those costs or offer like a cheaper price. And with Asian countries, they offer slightly cheaper prices because of the currency exchange and the cost of labor side of things.
Oh, yeah.
So that's an interesting one.
So it's cheaper to fly from somewhere into China or like into an Asia country than sometimes flying to another state in your own country.
That's right. And I was reading up on how airports work. So sometimes every airline buys a gate and the bridge that you get on and get off for a certain duration during the day and for specific days based on what days they're going to land and take off. So airports like Heathrow, JFK, where there's flights taking on and coming in every couple of minutes. So there's like a literally 10-minute, 15-minute window where if they don't land or take off, they get penalized.
Huh.
So what a lot of airlines do is if they know they're running late or if they know they're not going to run flights certain days, they sell it off to another airline. So they literally buy a gate and then sell it off to another airline. And they make profits out of that, which is quite interesting.
Interesting. How do they make profit? So they oversell it. Huh.
So basically what happens is, say, what's a good airport to refer to here? Los Angeles Airport. You've bought gate 5 for Monday to Friday between 9 to 12. But then you realize you don't want to fly as much because of COVID, less people are flying. So you're only going to fly Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 to 12. So Tuesday and Thursday, I'm going to sell it off to, say, if I'm United, I'm going to sell it off to American Airlines saying, Tuesday and Thursday, come along, you can use our gate, pay me this much money. So in a way, if you charge them more than what you paid for, which is the case because the other airline looks at it and thinks, Los Angeles is a huge airport, we're going to have a lot of people flying in. So between those 9 to 12, say United had 10 planes come in, Americans could put in, say, 15 or 20 planes to like decrease the cost of it per plane.
Interesting.
So that's kind of how the economic side of things work. And then I would love to explain how airlines schedule routes as well. So some of the things, inputs they look at is number of people traveling between those cities. The other things they look at is what kind of amenities or services those cities offer. So for example, a city like Los Angeles, you've got sport, education, work and profession, and other business side of things. So that means the tier, it's like a top tier when it comes to like cities. Whereas a city like, say, New Delhi or Mumbai, it's not as big because it's going to be a lot less tourists going in terms of numbers, and it's so that sort of thing. So that's one thing they look at. The second thing they look at is when they fly is every time you fly, the airspace is owned by a certain country or like a entity. So you have to pay them to like enter the airspace. So some countries charge more than the others. That's why the flight routes, if you look at it on a map, you can like draw a straight line. But then when you're flying, it's
that's
like
why
a
they have
wavy.
to go around sometimes.
That's right. And then for example, two countries don't get along well with each other. For example, India and Pakistan do not get along really well with each other. So any flight going, so Pakistan is west of India. So any flight from India to Europe trying to go northwest, Pakistan's in the way, so they can't go. So what they do is they go west and then go north rather than going northwest.
Yeah, okay.
So quite interesting tactics. And the best part is any flight that goes from Russia to America or just any country slightly under Russia, they fly to the North Pole rather than straight line into those countries. It's quite interesting.
Why is that?
I think it's mainly because of its, in terms of like flight time, it's a lot easier. And the other thing they look at is the disturbances in the sky. So when turbulence happens, there's a disturbance in the sky. So they want to plan a route where there's less turbulence, both from a passenger safety point of view and experience, but also to navigate through turbulence, you're using more fuel. And that's damaging the aircraft as well. Like
So
anytime,
it's
for
easier to
example,
go
if you're
through
traveling on...
So it's easier to go through the North Pole?
That's right. Than the other countries, which is quite interesting. And recently when the Ukraine and Russian war happened, a lot of the airspaces were closed off for Russian aircraft. So for them, they were literally landlocked in their own country because none of the other countries would let them use the airspace. So yeah.
Interesting.
Quite an interesting world. And there's like, even in the commercial side of planes, there's two sides. There's the passenger side and the cargo side. And With the cargo side, it's more like precious. All your vegetables and fruits that you see in your supermarket, most of them are like done or flown through the cargo plane, which can customize so much that you can actually put like a airplane-sized freezer in there, which is quite interesting.
Huh, interesting. It would be like cold enough when you're up in the air because it's so high, but also you don't want it to get frostbites, so you have to keep it warmer instead. So I guess the temperature control comes in that way, huh?
Yeah, that, and also mainly because when you're changing altitude, the temperatures are going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want food to like go through all those temperature changes that will spoil the food. So it's a lot easier to keep it consistent using these freezers or fridges.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And during COVID times, it was even more relevant because they were carrying a lot of those vaccines. I know Moderna, you had to put it under a certain temperature for it to like survive and function. It was like in the minus degrees, so it was quite interesting how aviation played a big role in both war resolution and COVID elimination a little bit.
Mm-hmm.